Hi there, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. If this is the first time that you found my channel, yay, I'm so glad you're here. I've been waiting for you. And if you're a returning subscriber, yay, thank you so much for coming back and for your support. I really appreciate it. Anytime you like the channel, subscribe, of course, or even commenting down below, those are free actions that take you a split second that really help my channel to grow. And I really appreciate that. All right, so the movie I'm reviewing today is called No Way Up. This dramatic thriller releases on February 16th, 2024 on video on demand. The movie is rated R, mostly for grisly images. It's an hour and 30 minutes, and my overall movie review mom grade is probably about a C. Let me give you an overview in a nutshell. I'll point out tips for parents, themes worth talking about, interesting lines, funny lines, as well as things I liked and then things I didn't like. And then we'll finish up with recommendations for other films that are sort of similar that you might also like or that you might like better than this one. Sound like a plan? All right, in a nutshell, characters from different backgrounds are thrown together when the plane they're traveling on crashes into the Pacific Ocean. A nightmare fight for survival ensues with the air supply running out and dangers creeping in from all sides. The film was directed by Claudio Fa, and writing credits go to Andy Mason. So let me give you some tips for parents. There is profanity, including many F-bombs. There are also many crude comments that just aren't necessary and make you dislike some of the characters instantly. So when they die or get hurt, you're just like, I didn't like that person anyway. We see a lot of people die in various ways, often with blood. We see dead floating bodies. We see gory body parts. And a gay man talks about wanting to marry his partner. Now, whenever I mention things like that last item, people say, what's so wrong with gay people? Nothing. I'm just giving the parents who might be watching my review a heads up on the content so they can decide if they want their children to watch it or if they want to watch it. It's just content. You make the decision. You make the call on that. And I've said many, many times, I have family and friends who belong in the LGBTQ community. So I'm not disparaging them at all. I love them. Okay, enough said about that. Some of the themes that are illustrated pretty well in the movie are survival. We hear this line, together we can do this, many, many times. Self-confidence and believing in yourself. We hear that many times, how just believe in yourself, or my mom believed in me, or I believe in you, that kind of thing. Sacrificing for others is illustrated, and it's very touching. Life and death, and of course, hope that you're going to survive. So there were a lot of things that I liked about this movie. Here's the list. First of all, fans of Downton Abbey's Phyllis Logan will be very happy to see her in this, as she just classes up the joint. I love her cute accent. She's such a likable, lovable person. Other cast members that you might recognize are Cole Meany, Will Attenborough, and Sophie McIntosh. Of course, there are many others. And then, have you been to Cabo? It's such a fun place. Unfortunately, the characters are flying there and don't actually make it. And that kind of would have been a cute scene at the very end to see them, in Cabo, but that doesn't happen. Now, if you don't like sharks, you're going to get a lot of jumps and scares, and you're going to, not be happy about that. However, it's not as often as maybe some viewers would like. We don't get to see as many sharks up close and personal as I thought we were going to. These kinds of underwater thrillers always make me hold my breath, and that's a good thing. That tells me there's tension because I'm like, because they're going underwater or the water's rising and that kind of stuff. I always admire actors who are willing to take roles in movies that require them to spend hours and weeks and maybe even months, depending on the film, in cold, wet sets. These characters, these actors, they are getting wet. And I just felt for them because it had to have been cold. There's a 10-year-old girl in this story who tells everyone that sharks don't like bubbles and that that's how they can scare the sharks away. And I thought, is that true? Really? And so I had to look it up, and apparently it's actually true. I didn't know that. Now, if they're racing at you, I don't know how you can all of a sudden scare them with bubbles. But anyway, they try to do some of that kind of stuff. So there obviously were some things that I didn't like. Otherwise, I would have given it a much higher score. But so many of the characters don't know how to behave like decent human beings. Many of them are just unlikable. And you're like, good riddance, as I said before, which is terrible. You want to be invested in these characters. So when things happen to them, you're just heartbroken, right? But you're just like, yeah, whatever. The lack of people on the plane at the very beginning of the movie is kind of odd, and it could have offered more interesting interactions than what we're given with a very small cast. Now, they explain why there aren't that many people on the plane, but I just thought, you didn't want to spend the money on some extras, and you could have had more interesting things happen on a plane that would be full. Anyway, so I just thought that that was an interesting choice. And then there's this big gaping hole in the plane. And as the plane is flying, people are flying out of the plane. So then when it lands in the water, you'd think it would instantly be filled with water, right? It sink to the bottom of the ocean. And it does. But there are some air pockets, which of course allow these characters to survive. And I thought, how realistic is that? I'm thinking that's not very realistic. Now, I'm not an airplane expert, so comment down below if you're like, oh, no, that's realistic. Otherwise, I was just like, okay, this is just super hokey. And then another part of the plane, it's, like hanging on a cliff, on an under ocean, cliff, and it kind of starts to fall off and it breaks again. And you're like, okay, so wouldn't that cause even more water to rush in? Anyway, so the whole plot points are pretty unbelievable. There are a lot of bad acting moments in the film as well. There are some wounds. Some of them look pretty doggone fake, and you're like, okay, it feels like a B movie or a C movie. Now, ultimately, the film just could have been so much better. As it is now, it's instantly forgettable. It could have also been more self-aware and maybe had more humor so that with a wink to the eye, they recognize you're just in it for the fun and the goofiness of it all. When I watch movies, I always write down funny lines, but I didn't write any down for this one because it kind of takes itself seriously, like a true survival drama, but it's pretty ridiculous. I did, however, write down some interesting lines, and I have all of these on my Movie Review Mom website in case you want to see all of them, but I'll share some of them with you right now. So there's this bodyguard, and he's played by Colm Meaney, and he says, every situation has the potential for violence. And he's talking to somebody who's like, how much violence is there going to be on a plane going to Cabo, And so he's looking at the airport and he's pointing out all of these various situations that make you realize, he's paying attention to all of those little details as well he should, since he's the bodyguard. And then, you're like, oh, we're going to see a lot of violence in this movie. But we don't really, in the sense that it's not a bunch of people fighting each other like the violence that you would expect. We see sharks and there's some violence and, that kind of thing. But that's why, again, I thought if you're going to say that line towards the beginning of the movie, that kind of sets up an expectation that the audience is going to expect mass hysteria, but there just weren't enough people on the plane to, get into big violent sequences. Not that I want violence, I'm just saying it was an interesting line that they used and then they didn't really do anything with it. Then there's this stupid boyfriend named Jed. I just couldn't stand him from the very beginning. I'm like, why is this girl with this guy? He's just kind of a whiner. But at one point he says, don't think about what can go wrong. Think about what can go right. And I thought, okay, I guess that's great advice. But in a survival situation, you also need to be planning on all the things that could go wrong and being prepared, right? Another time, again, setting the theme for the movie, this Jed again also says, when will you learn to believe in yourself? And I mentioned before that that's a big theme. And we do see some character growth and some belief and self-confidence in one character in particular. All right, so let me give you 3 movie recommendations for films I instantly thought of as I was watching this one. The first one is called 47 Meters Down. And so there's stuff happening at the bottom of the ocean, and sharks are involved, and you got to survive. And it's, again, kind of a silly thriller, but, kind of fun. If that's what you're in the mood for, that's what you'll get. And then an even sillier movie that's got a lot of scenes down at the bottom of the ocean is a recent one that came out last year called Meg to the Trench. And I did a review of that one. Actually, I did a review of all three of these. So go to my Movie Review Mom YouTube channel and search for some of these. I'll queue up maybe Meg to the Trench, and you can watch that one when this one's over. Reason I got a kick out of the Meg movies is they were very self-aware. They just winked at the audience and went with it, just being ridiculously goofy. And I appreciate that. And then another one that came out maybe 2 years ago is called The Flood. And it's more drama, but they did a really great job with the suspense and the thrills and the tension that you feel. It could have easily been just a really dumb, low budget survival movie, but they did a great job with that tension that you really feel. And so anyway, check those ones out. Hopefully you'll get a kick out of them like I did. All right, when you get a minute, run over to my Instagram account as Movie Review Mom, but you can also see it as Trina Boice, where you'll find my books that I've written and published with different publishing houses, my online courses, my products, and my other shenanigans. Have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.